There are those out there on both sides of the aisle who oppose what we're doing. We know about the supporters, but there are opponents on both sides of the aisle too. They fear the idea of a runaway convention. We hear this from Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. In responding to them, I would like to be direct, if perhaps a bit harsh. And in doing so, I will quote one of my favorite founding fathers, and that is Sam Adams. Sam Adams, in dealing with the people and talking about the people who opposed the fight for liberty, said this: "If you love wealth better than liberty, if you love the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, then go home from us in peace. We need neither your counsel nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you, and may posterity not remember that you were our countrymen."
So I covered in the first episode of the greatest civics lesson ever told. I covered Rick Santorum's speech to open up the simulated convention of states, and I thought it was a brilliant speech. I thought the nature of it and how he addressed the state legislators and pointed the finger at them, as well as himself, for the failures throughout history and how we've gotten to this place. And I thought it was brilliant in the way that he explained why this convention is the way to get out of these weeds. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about the significance of this and why it's a big deal, and why, when you watch it, why you should start to really see how the nation was designed to work. That seeing that many state legislators and statesmen and women in a room ironing things out, that is where the power of the United States rests. Why? Because those people are accountable to you and I, not just through elections, but they're accessible to you and I. Those are the people as a whole who govern the small districts that you and I live in. Those are the people that you and I can go and talk to. Those are the people that you and I can get a response to a letter. Those are the people that you and I can show up to our local legislator and send a letter or talk. These are the people who get things done. And the nation was set up as such where even the federal legislature was beholden to them. Now, the state legislatures ceded that power in 1913 when they allowed that power to be taken by the federal government, but we can take that back through convention. So I want to just get a moment to give you that feeling so that you understand how local this really is and how local is the way to go. And the founders understood this. They set it up to run that way, and then we have been duped and taught otherwise. I talked enough about civics being removed from the classrooms, the need for civics, the need for people, even the patriotic. You may think you understand how this nation was designed to work, but I can tell, and maybe you as an individual, depending who you are, do, the majority of us do not. And that's not an accident. Civics was pulled from our classrooms in the 60s, replaced with social studies, the commie version of civics. And it was designed to dumb us down. It was designed to rethink history and omit the process on how this government works, what this government is, etc. How many of you called this at some point, have called this country a democracy?
We are the ones trying to save our democracy. Very simple.
Or even if you still call it a republic, you think that, well, a democracy and a republic, it's really splitting hairs. That's not an accident. That's design. If you go, there's a school principal I spoke with to a grammar school who thought we live in a democratic republic. These are not accidents. This is by design. We live in a constitutional republic, one that was designed with specific limitations to what elected officials can do. That is an enormous difference than a democratic republic. The only thing that is similar is that there are elections. Every single other thing about the government is different. But we don't know this. We don't know this because we were intentionally not taught this. We intentionally have been told time and time again that we live in a democracy. Our entire lives have, and I'm 50 years old now, my entire life, people have been saying this democracy, this great democracy, the great American democracy. What about our democracy? How can we save our democracy? And they do all the movies, democracy, democracy, the politicians, democracy, democracy, everybody democracy. But meanwhile, we've never once lived in a democracy. Other nations live in democracies, and you see how they fare when it starts to hit the fan. Because they don't have limitations. They have elections, and then it's whatever. We have elections, and then they must abide by the Constitution. And that document has been tweaked over the course of the centuries, and it's going to get tweaked again because we need clarity. Because what's happened here, okay, how did we get here, you might say? How did we end up in this situation where the government is just so out of control and it doesn't even care? Like, how did we get here? We got here by the Supreme Court. We got here by the Supreme Court making decision after decision after decision, backing the federal government's power grab. And then we were taught, once the Supreme Court decides, that's the final word. And since we don't know anything about civics, we believed them. But the reality is it's not the final word. We are the final word. And while the founders put multiple safeguards in, the state legislatures gave one away, but the founders still have a backstop in there. They still have a path to make sure the Supreme Court is not the final decision. And when the Supreme, just like the left, when they wanted their income tax, and the Supreme Court would rule it unconstitutional because it is, well, 1913 came around, and the climate was ripe, and they went ahead and went nuts. They passed the income tax. The 16th Amendment gave authority for the federal government to tax income. Then they went ahead and took power from the states in forcing the senators to be elected directly so they can no longer be pulled out by state legislatures. And then just to cap off that wonderful year, day before Christmas Eve, Woodrow Wilson signs the Fed into existence. Talk about capitalizing on owning the politics of the year. Those three things alone have done more long-term damage to the United States than anything else in our history. Those three things alone, all happening in the same year, damaged absolutely everything in this nation. The government completely took control over wealth, which is what income tax is. Don't get it twisted. In case you're still thinking, oh, the corporations buy the politicians. No. That money laundering scheme requires income tax. So loopholes can be provided, and everybody gets paid back tenfold. All of these things can be corrected, but they can't be corrected unless we do it. They can't be corrected unless we get together and do it. And the beauty of this right now is that Convention of States Action has already put together the infrastructure. They've been doing this for 10 years, folks. And we've got 19 states, really 20, as Kansas has both houses voted for it, but they have this weird rule about supermajorities only for convention calls, which is being challenged right now. But either way, we're more than halfway there. And once people understand that this is the path and why, it's quick. It's quick. Like once people start rallying, you take a video like this, educate yourself on it, go to conventionofstates.com. There's plenty of information there. I've got a ton of videos on it. I've got clips from Scalia and others talking about it. There's all kinds of information out there to educate yourself. Federalist Papers 40 is a great read. Madison's notes. These things will become second nature to you. And the more you go on this journey and the more you surround yourself with people who are also on this journey, the more context and the more validity it gains. And when it's done, folks, don't get this twisted. When it's done, when this convention is called, the gravity of the amendments passed and the changing of the relationship between government and the people will be so astronomical. It will be taught in schools as a constitutional convention moment. Even though it's a convention for proposing amendments, it will have the weight and impact of the actual constitutional convention from the standpoint of the gravity of what it accomplishes. Nobody can stop it. This is the path. And I want to make sure everyone gets this. Now, I'm going to do another video for this series where I go over some of the details about the actual amendments that came from this simulation. Although I will tell you in advance, there were not nearly as many as would have come had this been a real convention. And for those who did watch the simulation, and maybe, you were curious about some of the amendments that came out, etc., understand they had 3 days here. You cannot tackle these issues in 3 days. So they generally picked one topic for each one and kind of went after that, because the debates on the details and everything and how it works and the changes, it takes time. A real convention would run 6 to 8 months. Going on, for those who remember the OJ trial, it would be going on as a publicly televised event for an enormous amount of time, as it should, because it should be debated thoroughly, and it should be and people should be engaged with the entire freaking process. This is the path, folks. So I want you to go from here, subscribe to the channel, follow the channel. I'm going to try to bring on Mike Arnold, who is the regional director, or a regional director in the Northeast for Convention of States Action. We're going to go over, if I can get him on, we're going to go over some of the issues, some of the things we saw in it, some of the things that, we would have liked to see and didn't see, etc. But all in all, it was an immense success, because the only point of it was to show the process. And they succeeded very well. Go to convention. You actually go to my website, thepatriotthinktank.com. There's also a link to buy my shirts there, but also, more importantly, on the front page, sign the petition. Okay, there's a COS link in there too that'll have direct links to COS University, etc. But when you go in there, click the link to sign the petition, sign it for your state, and click volunteer so somebody calls you. Because someone will call you and they will tell you in a phone conversation where your state's at, what's going on. Maybe you guys need leadership in that state and you're a leader, right? Maybe they need, maybe they need a videographer and you do videos, right? Or maybe they need, legal advice and you're a lawyer, right? Whatever it may be, there's something you can do to contribute, and it's important to know where your state is, and it's important to take the knowledge that you gain and give it to others. All right. So I don't want to forget to remind everybody, we have the Patriot Think Tank group, which is on Facebook. It is separate from the page, but it is linked to the page. It's over 1,000 members there. I've never once promoted it. However, it grew to over 1,000 members anyway, and there are some great people there. So every broadcast that I do, if you don't get alerts on Facebook, I do put an @everyone in there when I upload a broadcast, so you should get an alert there. So just as a heads up, if you are one of the people that never gets alerted for my live events or never gets alerted for, my video drops, that's a good place to go and start. Also, I have a series coming up regarding the Mandela effect, which I would like to do a small plug for here. But in the meantime, folks, go ahead and click the follow, subscribe, and like, comment. We need it all for the algorithm. Help us get this word out. I appreciate you, and I will see you on Wednesday. I'm out.
And like that, he's gone.